Now let us talk about fields. Fields. Now, when I have a positively charged particle, usually a positively charged particle is represented by lines like this. It's represented by lines like this. And a negatively charged particle is represented by lines which are inwards. Which are inwards like this. The positively charged particle, when the lines are outwards, which means that if I take one more positively charged particle, which you call as test charge, and put it here in the vicinity of this charge, then this will say, I am already a positive charge, I don't want any other charges to come nearby, and I want to repel off, I want to push off any charges who comes nearby to me, and hence I'm going to push you away. And how am I going to push? I'm not going to put you into a spiral, but instead I'm going to direct you along a line connecting between me and you, okay, which is radially directed, and thus I'm going to throw you out. So this is what it conveys. The information that it conveys without connecting a string or a spring or any digital meter between them is known as a field. In other words, the moment I put a positive charge here, this creates a region of influence. This creates a region of influence. And this region of influence makes this charge to understand what is going on here, whether there is a positive charge, negative charge, and thus immediately this has to move about. Okay, so this is what it creates. Sorry?
The gravitational field or magnetic field?
Yes, very similar to gravitational field and magnetic field. The electrostatic field is also being created in case of the static charges. Okay, that's what we say. Static charges creates electrostatic field. Movable charges creates a magnetic field. We'll come back to it later on. But currently, let us look at static fields. Yes. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. So we have seen this one. In a similar way, now this is about a positive charge. A positive charge creates an electrostatic field which is radially directed outwards so that it does not allow any charge to come towards it. This is true for a positive charge and also for a negative charge. This might be quite new to you, but let me break this up once again. Okay. So even if a negative charge comes to it, the positive charge will now try to repel it away. But we have learned that positive and negative will attract each other. Let me see how do they attract. But currently look at only this model. The model says that when you put a negative charge here, the positive charge tries to make this move. This repels it like this. It throws away with a force. This positive charge says, okay, I don't like any charges. I am also going to repel you away. As a result of this, however small, however big, whatever it could be, you see that when you put two charges, this is pushing it like this, this is pushing it like this, both of them will try to get repelled and move farther away. Will never come to each other. Nobody is a boss, nobody is a subordinate here. Okay, so both of them are trying to make it move away here. Now, let us understand the negative counterpart here. Now I have a positive charge, I have a negative charge. Positive charge says, okay, I am going to throw everyone outside. Whether you are a positive charge or a negative charge, I am not bothered. But a negative charge says, I am going to pull everyone towards me. So as a result of it, what do you observe? Though this is being pushing away, but this negative charge tries to pull it towards it. As a result of it, the positive charge tries to move towards the negative charge. And hence, you get an attraction. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there is an attraction here. Okay, positive charge works only to move away the other charges, while the negative charges try to attract the positive charges. It's not only the positive charges, it also attracts negative charges. Now let us understand how does that happen. A negative charge will be like this. Will be like this over here. Okay. Now what happens is, this negative charge will try to attract this one. So it pulls this charge in this way. While this negative charge tries to pull it in the other way around. It is like a tug of war. Okay. So you have a single knot, for example. There are people who are pulling it this way. There are people who are pulling it this way. So as a result of it, you cannot expect both of them will come nearby. They will always move farther apart. So in other words, there is a repulsion. Right? So therefore, we have seen like charges repel and unlike charges attract, and that is what we have observed here. It is clear based on the field model how the properties can be explained. Any doubts?
No doubts, sir.
Okay. So we have seen charges. How do you create charges? There are three methods. We have seen how to detect charges, okay, using electroscope. Then we have seen what do you mean by a field. A charge creates a field surrounding this, which you call as region of influence. And the region of influence, okay. So let us define field. You can define it in two ways. One is the region of influence is called as a field. This can be created by multiple entities. Correspondingly, the names can be changing. You can also define field as action at a distance. Action at a distance. You can define it in either way. Okay, when you say region of influence, you can say that is the region where another particle, another charge will experience a force due to the first charge. When you say action at a distance, it means the another particle or another charge will experience a force due to the first charge. Okay, the force could be attractive or it could be negative. It could be repulsive. So that is how you can define the field. Okay, the field is always defined by force per unit charge. Okay, or force by basic entity. I'll not write this as charge. You can write this as basic entity that creates the field. Now towards it, let me first start with gravitation. I'm going to compare it with gravitation. In case of gravitational field, you write this as force divided by the basic entity that creates a gravitational force is nothing but mass, force by mass. We already know that force is equal to m into g divided by m is nothing but g. So what you call as 9.8 is nothing but 9.8 meter per second square, which you call as acceleration due to gravity, is indeed the gravitational field that you are describing. The gravitational field due to Earth is seen to be 9.8 meter per second square. That's the way how you define here. In a similar way, if you have a charged object, unfortunately Earth, okay, we consider Earth to have a basic neutral charge. Okay, so therefore, you will not experience electrostatic field in Earth. Okay, but if at all, if you are in a planet where you had the planet composed of completely charged objects, okay, then you will be able to define a value similar to what you define here. And here the basic entity is charge, so I can now write this as F divided by Q. So the field, the electrostatic field, E is equal to F by Q. This is the way how you define. So whatever you have learned in gravitation, the same things appear or it occurs even in the electrostatics. There is no difference between these two. Okay, so you will not be able to say a value something like this here, because this value will be different based on the type of charge, based on the amount of charge, based on the type of force that is acting between two objects. Okay, then let us compare between these two. You have studied that F is equal to G m1 m2 divided by d square, where m1 was the mass of the bigger object, m2 was the mass of the smaller object, and d was the distance between these two. This is what you did here. Now, in case of electrostatics also, you will study a very similar law, but here this was called as Newton's laws, and here we call this as Coulomb's law. Coulomb's law, and we define this as the force F is equal to K Q1 Q2 divided by d square, where Q1 is the first charge, Q2 is the second charge. D is the distance between the two charges. The difference between these two, it looks alike very much, is that this constant G is constant for the whole universe. This constant K depends on the environment. So there is a drastic difference between these two, which means that if you are keeping these two charges in air, you will have some force. If you are keeping these two charges in water, the force would be completely different. This value of G remains a constant, which will be 6.67 into 10 power minus 11. But the value of K, it's not like that. It keeps on changing depending upon the environment. If it is ethanol, it will have a different value. If it is water, it's a different value. If it is air, it's a different value. Okay, it depends only on the environment. Okay, any doubts? Is this clear until now? Any doubts until here?
No, sir.
Okay, now I will write an equation. F is equal to G m1 m2 divided by d square. I have two masses m1 and m2, and I have written a force. Where does this force act? Is it acting on M1 or is it acting on M2? Is it acting on M1 or M2?
So it will be GM. I mean, the force will be equal, right?
The force would be equal. Okay, you mean to say the same force acts on M2 and as well as same force acts on M1?
Yes, sir.
Yes, magnitude wise, the same force will act on both the objects. So this is what we get here. Now, let's take up instead of a mass, if I take two charges, plus Q1 and plus Q2. Now the distance between these two is D. Once again, the force of attraction or repulsion here would be K, Q1, Q2 divided by D square. Now what can happen here? What is the direction of the force here?
One is going from Q1 to Q2, one is going from Q2 to Q1.
Which means, so one is going from Q1 to Q2, which means what will happen to Q2? Which means Q1 and Q2 will be attracting?
Yes, sir.
Will they come closer to each other?
Yes, sir.
No, it can't come. See, remember, Q1 is now pushing Q2, right? Isn't Q1 pushing Q2?
Yes, sir.
So you should write like this here, am I right? The force
Yes,
experienced
sir.
by Q2 due to Q1 is in this direction. The force experienced by Q1 due to Q2 is in this direction. So you should not write these arrows like this here. See, you are writing the arrows like this here because the force experienced by M2 due to M1 is attractive. So it is like this. And the force experienced by M1 due to M2 is attractive once again. You are writing it like this. Hence it is attractive. Here it is repulsive. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let me ask one more question here. What is the acceleration due to gravity of what is the acceleration of M1 and what is the acceleration of M2? Due to these two objects. We are not on Earth. We are two different objects, M1 and M2, which are kept in space. They are mutually getting attracted by the gravitational force. What is the acceleration of M1? What is the acceleration of M2?
M1 is
acceleration of M1 is?
It will be G M1 by D square, right? Because like MA is equal to
G M1 by?
It will be G M2 by D square.
G M2 by D square, yeah. So I'll write this as A1 is equal to F by M1. Can I write like this?
Yes, sir.
And this will now be equal to G M2 by D square. And what about here? A2 will now be equal to? A2 will be equal to?
So it will be equal to G M1 by D square.
G M1 by D square. Okay. Now one more question. Is the gravitational field experienced by M1 and M2 are the same or are they different?
Magnitude wise, it will be the same, right? No, actually it's for a
Is it so?
No, it'll be different, right? Because for one will be G M1 by D square and the other one will be G M2.
Exactly. Right. Okay. So the acceleration due to this will be different from this one. It depends upon whatever your masses. You can gauge them, which is larger and which is smaller later on. But currently, if M1 and M2 are unknown quantities, you can only say that, okay, that the acceleration here or gravitational field here and the gravitational field here will be totally different. They will not be equal. The forces can be equal, but your gravitation will not be equal. The gravity will not be equal. Now, coming back to this. Now here, what about the electric fields? Can you define what is the electric field here? What is E2 here?
So there will be KQ1 by D square.
KQ1 by D square. Exactly. Which will be F divided by Q2. Okay. So whenever I'm talking about electric field, what do I do here? I just find out, okay, what is the force experienced by me? If I put Q2 equal to 1 here, I just ask, if I ask you what is electric field, I'll say that what is the force experienced by me when I'm standing here, okay, and I do not have, or maybe I have a charge equal to 1. If I put charge equal to 1, then E2 is nothing but the force experienced by me by the charge Q2 due to the charge Q1. So I get this value here, KQ1 by D square. Now here, in a similar way, can you tell me what is E1?
E1 will be KQ1 by D square.
Will it be KQ1?
KQ2 by D square.
KQ2 by D square, which means now for this point, let me call this point A and this is point B. For this point, Q2 is the source. For the point B, Q1 is the source, right? So here, instead of writing like this, you can just say The electric field at a point can be written as K times Q source divided by the distance between the point and the source. Okay, so this is what we can write here. So E is equal to KQS by D square. Right. So we have seen what is electric field, what is the force which the, how does the field act, and how do you calculate the force? We have seen all this. The force between any two charges can be calculated by Coulomb's law. And then, so what is a point charge? A point charge is one wherein, okay, let us say I have an object, a big object like this, okay, and this is having positive charges here. This is having negative charges also here. Let us say there are 30 positive charges over here and minus 10 charges, the negative charges over here. The sum of these two charges is seen to be 30 minus 20, which is 20. Now the whole object, dimensionally though it is very large, what I do is I can represent it by a point over here, and then I say the total charge on the object is equal to plus 20. Now I can call this as plus 20, and that too I represent it by a point only if from the place where I am watching, where I am looking at it. Let us say I am looking at it from here. At a very larger distance, I observe that this appears to be a point object, which means the dimensions of the object are smaller as compared to the distance between the source and the destination. Then you can call this as a point object. So a point object, okay, is nothing but charges that are seen to be focused at one point or concentrated at one point. Okay, we use one more terminology also along with point charge. We use the terminology as unit positive charge. What do you mean by unit positive charge? Positive is positive. Unit means one. Yeah. So therefore, the charge that you are considering is equal to Q2 is equal to 1 charge, which is Q2 equal to 1. Whenever needed, you can put Q2 equal to 1. Okay, in any definition, any problem, when it says about a unit positive charge or a unit test charge, the moment you say unit, it means the value of Q2 is 1. Q1 or Q2, whatever he points it across, that is 1. The value of it is plus 1, not minus 1. Okay, but on the other hand, if it says unit negative charge, it is minus 1. Q2 will be equal to minus 1. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So how do you find this chapter to be easy or tough?
I think till now it's mostly what we've done previously, right? So, like in
right. Okay. So we have already, yes, we already seen this. Okay.